Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
Good morning, Andrew.
It's
Andrew.
Did you watch any of that Pacers Celtics game last night?
Yeah, dude, they needed a slob wizard. Every team needs a slob wizard. They didn't have one.
That was such a disaster by the Pacers. It was like, how can we do every single thing wrong down the stretch? It was like it was a masterclass of doing things wrong. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, having the timeout available to you and still throwing that inbounds pass, which he like barely led him. He just threw it like right in between them, going towards the Celtics basket. That was
It was like
that would
everything
kill
from like,
me.
oh, I know. Pacers fans have to be just kicking themselves this morning because like everything from like 38 seconds left in regulation through the overtime, you're just like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening? Or why like the execution was so poor, and it was like, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is the Eastern Conference. Like this is the margins you have in the Eastern Conference where you can play like this and still have a chance to win a game. Can you imagine if the Thunder or like any team played like that in any Western Conference playoff game? It would have just been, it would have just been over. It's insane.
I know. And it makes me furious. I'll see that like Kelly Eco yesterday reported that the Rockets have interest in Donovan Mitchell. It's like, will someone please go to the Eastern Conference? Can someone? Does no one see the opportunity that is available to them in the Eastern Conference? Why would anyone want to come to the Western Conference right now?
I know.
Get away.
Yeah, please go away. Please go away. Yeah, and like the 1 year that like there's no real number one pick, the number one pick goes to the East.
Yeah, that's true. And the number 2 pick.
Yeah, and the number 2 pick. It's like, hey, congratulations. I mean, that happened in the year that in the 2013 draft too, where it's like the worst draft ever. It's like, yeah, the pick's going to the East. Anthony Bennett.
Yeah, that's true.
Gifted to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and Orlando is number 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's number 3 in that draft? Who's taken after Vic?
Wizards.
Wizards.
Was that right? Was he 3 or 4 though?
Wizards? I don't remember.
I can't remember. He was either 3rd or 4th, but that draft, yeah, it was Otto Porter 3rd. Actually, the top 4 were all in the East. Cavs, Magic, Wizards, Charlotte.
Absolutely cursed.
Totally cursed. And the first good player taken in the top 10 went to the West. CJ McCollum at 10.
Wow.
Went to Portland. It's crazy.
Well,
I'm very much looking forward to the game tonight, though. I think we'll get some real ball.
Yeah, I'm excited about this series because I think it's natural to kind of favor the Wolves after a team knocks off the defending champs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But Dallas really impressed me. Their defense really impressed me in that series. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, I want to talk about a team that relied too much on young players, unproven players.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Team that never solved their backup center issue. Andrew,
mm-hmm.
A team that really punted on a championship window season in pursuit of a window that may not even be there long term. Wow. I'm of course talking about the Denver Nuggets. I was wondering if you read the KOC article yesterday.
I did not. I did not read the KOC article. Is that what he said?
Well, no. It's just like when you step back and look at like what the issues were with Denver, it's basically everything people are saying about the Thunder.
Yeah.
Like they relied way too much on youth. They never solve they didn't give support to their MVP. They didn't surround him with enough talent. They didn't get a backup center. And in the article, I mean, literally the like subheading is about how the desire to go back to back wasn't even a goal shared throughout the organization.
Oh, give me a break. They said it at the parade last year.
Oh, this is great. Andrew, I can't believe you didn't read this. I'm going to read you this Calvin Booth quote because I just think it's so funny. but yeah, I just thought it was. I mean, yes, it's a bunch of like uh, them spinning this,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's just so funny because this team, the Nuggets, coming off of last season, how many podcasts did you listen to where they were talking about them as a potential dynasty?
Oh, all the
And
time, all the time.
yes, all the time. And you pull back a little bit, and some of the things that are brought up in this article is, KCP is an unrestricted free agent this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray is up for a max extension next summer. Aaron Gordon is an unrestricted free agent next summer. And this is a team that, assuming they bring back KCP, which that's not a guarantee, they will be a second apron team,
Mm-hmm.
which if you haven't looked at Denver's history, they don't have like a long history of paying a ton in luxury tax payments.
Right.
And so if they did all of this, they would be a second apron team for years and years. And we know some of the things that happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta find this thing. Okay, here it is. So this is what Calvin Booth told KOC last August. I
Oh.
just want dudes that we try to develop and it's sustainable. If it costs us the chance to win a championship this year, so be it. It's worth the investment. It's more about winning 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 4 out of 8 than it is about trying to go back to back. It's just so funny in this environment where like OKC gets roasted day after day after day for like not taking advantage of this window as the youngest team in the league or youngest team in the playoffs. And
Right.
meanwhile, the defending champs are like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, no big deal. We're trying this other thing because those two deals that they made with OKC, in retrospect, kind of wild when you think about the deals that have been made over the past couple of years. Like I think back to the Drew Holiday trade, the original one,
Mm-hmm.
going from New Orleans to Milwaukee. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are the types of trades that are available if you want to send lightly protected picks. Like you can
Yeah.
get potentially like your second or third best player with those types of picks.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of that, Denver decides to trade those picks, lightly protected picks, for for late firsts and seconds.
Yeah.
And someone responded to me and they actually laid out everything they got in those trades.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Yeah.
I was trying to find it because it wasn't the Christian Brown pick, it was the Peyton Watson pick that they got for the first one.
Right.
I'll try to find that, but I just it's just funny looking back at those moves last summer because at the time, and even now, you still kind of get it because everything I just mentioned about like KCP, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, like they have this wave of money that's going to be coming at them, like that they have to figure out, and so it does make sense that you would want rookie scale contracts
Yeah.
on your roster, but
Oh,
they
yeah.
still have to hit. And
Yeah.
okay, so this is from Ben Glover on Twitter. Peyton Watson, Julian Strother, Hunter Tyson, Jalen Pickett. They got off 10.9 million of JaMychal Green's contract, which saved them some tax money. They got
Mm-hmm.
$110,000 and then the number 57 pick in 2024. They also opened up the MLE to get Reggie Jackson. Like that's what they got for 2 top 5 protected picks in the
Wow.
future.
Yeah.
And man, it just doesn't add up to
No.
me.
No. Yeah. There's
When,
not.
when
Peyton
I
Watson.
think about what those picks could get
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Especially top 5 protected picks.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get like a real player. You get a real player to help you right now. Yeah, it's part of it is, and Memphis kind of has done the same thing where you kind of get, and this is like a cautionary tale for OKC a little bit, where it's like you can get cute with it and think like, oh, we'll nail these late round picks, like we'll nail them
Right.
because we've done it in the past, and so. But like, look at Memphis, and now look at Denver, and maybe some of Denver's guys work out next season, and it looks a little bit better. But what if they don't? What if you drafted David Roddy, and gave up a true rotation player to do that? Like that. Those moves are killer, and that's where like if you're the Thunder and you think about like Isaiah Joe, even like Aaron Wiggins to a degree, it's like those guys can play. Like those
Yeah.
guys can really play, throughout the season and in the playoffs. Like you can feel pretty confident in playing those guys. If you traded like one of those guys for a late first round pick, well, you could say to yourself, "Oh, that's good value." But you got you, the pressure to nail that pick is on you. Like you have to nail that pick. You have to find a rotation player with that pick, and it's way easier said than done.
It
And
is. I mean, it is kind of like a version of the 2 timeline thing,
hmm
and, like, it theoretically works if you nail everything, but the draft is such a crapshoot, and we've seen 3 teams now try to do this, where they're kind of, like, eschewing veterans, like, "Yeah, we're not going to bring as many vets on the team because we wanna try to build the back of our roster with young guys,
yeah,
and a few of those guys are inevitably gonna develop, and it will
mhm,
all work out." Like,
mm.
especially in the case of, like, Memphis, I mean, they had so many picks. I mean, I think they took, like, 4 firsts in that one draft where it was, like, Jake LaRavia and David Roddy,
Oh,
um,
yeah,
and man, when it doesn't work, it just kills you so much because now you have these contracts on your roster of young guys that don't really have any trade value. Like
mhm,
I wouldn't say that any of those Nuggets guys after a year have any significant trade value. You know,
yeah,
um, that was the case with those Memphis guys as well. So yeah, I do think it's a cautionary tale. Like it's awesome to have all of these picks, but you can't just bank on that. You know,
yeah,
you can't just assume that like we're getting a Case and Wallace every single year. One of
right.
these years, you're just gonna flame out and get nothing.
Yeah, you'll pick. I mean, and it happens with everybody. The
Yeah,
further down you go in the draft, the harder it is to nail the pick. Um, and maybe some of it is like you have like a success, and then like you think like, oh, it's repeatable. And with the Nuggets, is like they drafted Christian Brown 21st.
I
You
know.
know,
It was like the best and worst thing to happen to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
It's like, oh, we can just do this every year. This is amazing.
yeah. Memphis had 3 picks in the top 38 in the 22 draft, and they
Okay,
took
okay.
Laravia, David Roddy, and Kennedy Chandler. And
Kenny
two of
Chandler,
those
who was not in the league by the end of his rookie season.
Right. I was gonna say 2 of those guys are gone, 1 out of the league, and then we'll see on Laravia. He's just yeah, you don't really see a, like, starting level player, though. Like, he's a bench guy, even if
Yeah,
if it works out. So, yeah,
but
it's tough. It's tough.
this year they have the ninth pick,
They do.
so we'll see.
Yep.
Um, yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up is just comparing this team. Well, I just feel like a lot of the angst around the Thunder right now, if there is angst, you see it more from like national people, but I see it some within the Thunder fan base.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I feel like a lot of it is because they are getting compared to that KD Russ team.
Yeah.
Um, and there's kind of like an expectation. I mean, we've been doing it ourselves in like a positive way. Like, oh, do you think this is like the 50-win season? When they were the eighth seed, or this is the next season where they went to the Western Conference Finals? Like, we're trying to line it up.
Mm,
Like it's going to repeat itself. And I just think it's really interesting to go back and look at the league that Katie and Russ were trying to win in at
mhm.
that time, because it is such a different league, and it was so much harder to win a championship when Katie and Russ were trying to do it. They went to the finals in 2012, lost to Miami. I'm going to read you the net ratings for the next 7 champions, starting with that 2012 Miami team.
Mhm.
Plus 6.5, plus 8.6, plus 8.1, plus 10.2, plus 6.4, plus 11.6, plus 6.0. The worst of those teams by net rating was the 2018 Warriors with KD. That was the worst. Since then, the net ratings for the next 5 champions, who have all been different, plus 6.0, that's the absolute best. The 2019 Toronto Raptors had the best net rating of the last 5 champions. Plus 5.7, plus 5.7, plus 5.6, plus 3.4. Now, that is going to change this year because Boston is in a plus 11.6, which actually ties the 2017 Warriors. I think anyone who has watched Boston in these playoffs can tell that maybe that's a function of the conference they're playing in, and
Oh, yeah.
not that Boston is some all time great team. Now maybe that changes when Porzingis comes back. We'll see. But they are like the least dominant great team I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Is
Like
mad.
to be at plus 11.6 to tie the 2017 Warriors in net rating and to routinely look like this.
It's strange. It's so
It's just
strange.
so yes, it will change this year. There will be a team with a better net rating. I mean, even if Minnesota wins, they're a plus 6.6. That feels a little more real because that seems to fit Minnesota. But Indiana's plus 3, Dallas is a plus 2.2.
Mhm.
I just don't think that they're going to be dominant teams anymore. Like if this Boston Celtics team is the like best version of a dominant team in this like modern age of the NBA, there's not going to be a dominant team. That's like the best you can do. I just don't like those teams don't exist anymore. I wouldn't take any of these past 5 champions over any of those first 7 teams I mentioned. I mean, 2012, 2013 Heat, 2014 Spurs, any
Yeah.
of the Warriors teams, even 2016 Cleveland. Like that was like LeBron was still very close to his like later stage peak.
I was gonna say prime LeBron was still there. Yeah.
Prime Kyrie, like one of the best Kyrie performances we've seen. Like I wouldn't take any of 2019 Toronto bubble Lakers, 2021 Bucks are maybe the closest for me, and then 2022 Warriors, and then 23 Denver. Like that run that occurred during that window for Katie and Russ was unbelievably tough to break through. And now we're seeing a different winner every single year, a different team every single year,
different conference finalists every year.
different conference finalists every year. Like it's starting to look so much more like the NFL. And if you follow the NFL, you know that like every year there's really like 10 teams who you can kind of like talk yourself into like maybe this is their year.
Mhm.
And it just feels like we're headed that way. Now that doesn't guarantee OKC anything, but like the path to a championship is so much easier than it has been. I feel like at any other time, at least in my lifetime of watching the NBA. I mean, that 2011 Dallas Mavericks championship is held up by a lot of fans because it felt like such a special championship. At the time, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. It was, this awesome moment where you had this like singular talent, like dragging his team all the way to the final. Now that's like every season. That's like what all of these teams feel like in retrospect. Like that 22 Warriors team, just like Steph dragging that team to the finals. So I don't know. That is one of the things that makes me feel more positive about the Thunder going forward. And again, not a guarantee of anything, but like not only is the league, not only is there more parity, but we haven't even seen the effects of the new rules come into play yet. And KOC listed them out in his article. I just want to reiterate them because so many of the teams that OKC will be coming up against in the next couple years are going to be teams that are dealing with the direct effects of the first apron and the second apron. And I know we talk about the second apron all the time, but like the first apron isn't a joke either. When you're in the first apron, you can't acquire a player via sign and trade. You can't use the biannual exception. You can't sign players using more than the taxpayer mid-level, and you can't sign players waived during the season if their salary exceeds the non-taxpayer mid-level. So no buyouts for the most part,
Yeah. Like Kyle
And then
Lowry here. Like there were limits like contenders that could sign him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you hit the second apron, then you can't use cash. You can't use trade exceptions from prior years. You can't aggregate outgoing salaries. First round picks 7 years out can't be traded. If you're in the second apron 3 out of 5 years, the first round pick gets moved to the end of the round. OKC's not going to be dealing with this over these next 2 seasons, likely. I mean, we'll see what happens this summer. But you look at the things that these other teams are facing, it's just going to be hitting a lot sooner. I mean, I mentioned about Denver, how not only KCP, but then you have the Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, like free agencies or extension coming up next summer. I mean, that's a huge deal. That would be a massive tax bill if they bring both those guys back, even factoring in that, this new TV money is going to slowly be increasing the cap. Minnesota, like they're in good shape for next year if they're willing to pay. They will be a second apron team, but like they have all their guys under contract. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is an unrestricted free agent next summer. And then Dallas, I kind of didn't realize this, but Derek Jones Jr. is an unrestricted free agent this summer.
Yep.
Obviously played a huge role in the
Get to make some
Thunder series.
coin.
Yeah, and of course, I'm not mentioning teams that are way more screwed because I don't really believe in them. But like the Suns, for instance, or the Lakers if they make like a big trade this summer.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Like the Thunder may have missed a shot in a sense, but I think that it's going to continue being like this. Like, I don't think the environment that set itself up for this year is unique. I think this is what it's going to be like going forward, where there aren't really dominant teams, and every single season you're going to feel like, man, we really had a chance. Unlike in like 2017, where it's like, man, it'd be cool if we could get to the Western Conference Finals and lose to the Warriors. That's about the best we could do. Like every single season feels like you can win a championship because there aren't truly great teams anymore.
Well, and, like, the thing about it that kind of, like, blows my mind is, like, just, like, read the tea leaves a little bit. The Thunder have a chance to be that great team. Like, they
Well, that
were
was the other thing I was going to say. Like if you think about like 2012 Miami or the Warriors teams, it really feels like it's impossible to build those teams anymore. But if you were going to do it, you would have to have the setup that OKC has right now.
you'd have to
It's
have
the
rookie
only way
scale.
you could do it.
Yeah, you'd have to have these guys on rookie scale deals. I mean, you look at Denver and, like, they were thought of as, like, this, like, dominant team, and, like, Michael Porter Jr., who's, like, their young guys in year 4, you know? Like, Chet and J-Dub just completed year 2. Jamal Murray just had year 6. Like, it took some time for them to get to where they were, and, like, I believe that, like, J-Dub is gonna be on a higher level than Jamal Murray is. I think Chet's gonna be at a higher level than Michael Porter Jr. is. Now, is, like, Shea and Jokic at different levels? Like, who I mean, it's probably,
Yes.
like, Jokic is definitely is better, but, like, Shea has a little while before he reaches, like, his, like, peak prime too. And so I just think that this Thunder team, and especially with you have like a nice like cast behind these guys, and you have the opportunity and the picks to be able to trade and get good role players around these guys. I think like they have a real opportunity to like be the dominant team. And I know it's a bummer to lose in the playoffs, but like this was always how it was going to go. And like this is actually like one of the better outcomes for this season. If you go back in time and you say at the beginning of the season, like this is the way the season's going to turn out, you'd be like, whoa, like that's incredible. And I know that like everybody's feelings and like expectations changed as it went along. But like if you just like zoom back out and look at it, it's like, wow, like that's an incredible season. Like an incredible season for the second youngest team. And truly the youngest team, when you talk about who just played the minutes, the youngest team in the league. Like that's an incredible season. And if you're not celebrating it and if you're upset about the trade deadline or whatever else, like I just don't really know what to tell you. I mean, it's almost like your own fault for like adjusting your expectations like almost too high for like what this
Well,
team.
I would say to those people, because I'm like closer to that camp, but I would say like at least give it this summer because you need to see what they're willing to do. Like if they just run this back and they just have all of this space or they use that space to just like absorb a contract or something, like yeah, I would not be happy. Like the whole point of this is setting up that like they have this awesome opportunity this summer to make the types of moves that these other teams just can't make. They like if you look at the other teams in the Western Conference and specifically the ones that we think are going to be the best teams, none of them really have the capability to make like a huge move. They could potentially do it if they're willing to trade like their number twos or number threes with like whatever picks they have left.
Mhm.
But Dallas doesn't have a ton of pick capital. Minnesota obviously doesn't have a ton of pick capital. Denver doesn't have a ton of pick capital. So OKC is really of those teams the one that has the opportunity to make a significant upgrade to the team. And if you felt like that series was close between Dallas and OKC, which I go back and forth on it, because I do think like Dallas was clearly the better team in that
They just played
series.
better. I mean, they shot better. They played better. Like, I'm
And
not gonna.
honestly, if it was closer, I might feel if it was closer in my mind, I might feel differently about all this because I might feel like, oh man, they really were super close. But
Mhm.
watching how they played and specifically like how J Dub and at times Chet played, I just came to the conclusion like, okay, they weren't going to win this year if this is how these guys were going to play
Yeah, they need more
at,
time.
at,
Like, they
at
just need
points.
more time. Like, they need to have these experiences, to get better. Like, it's just and that's how most guys are. Like, that's how, like, a majority of the league is. It's there's a reason why they're the youngest team to ever win a first round series, you know? It's like it
But
just doesn't happen.
all that is to say, like they do have an opportunity that these other teams don't have this summer
Mhm.
to really upgrade the team. And if you think about like how good we think this team was this season in the regular season, winning 57 games, top 5 offense, top 5 defense, the fact that they can now upgrade that team in a significant way. Like for all these other teams, the main way they're going to upgrade is if they like find some guy on a middle level exception, or they just get lucky on like a vet minimum, or maybe they draft someone in the late first or the second that just happens to pop. Like that is their most likely path to a major upgrade. OKC can do all of that they can do while also having all this space, all these picks. And so it's really setting up for this summer. Now there's a voice in the back of my head like convinced that they're not actually going to do anything big and it's going to drive me insane, but until that point happens, I'm going to be optimistic and keep going back to this idea that they have this amazing opportunity this summer. Now
Well,
could that have happened at the trade deadline? Yes, like theoretically, but I think when you look at the caliber of players that were traded at the deadline and all of the rumors uh, pertaining to teams that weren't willing to make a trade at the deadline that should have, thinking mainly about the Nets, but there were also other teams, and we all know that because that is part of the effect of having this play in. Like when you have a play in the middle of the season, it kills the trade deadline to some extent because teams are going to be less willing to trade their players. I mean, the
mm,
only team that really went all out was the Raptors, who should have been doing it a year prior. And you look at the deals they got for those guys. I mean, I saw Ben Pfeiffer tweeting about it last night. Like, would you really want to be paying Pascal Siakam 5 years, $255 million, which is what's facing the Pacers this summer?
right.
Like, good player. They've obviously like had a great season, but like paying a guy in his early 30s for another 5 years at just an absurd amount. And then with OG, like it's clear now that the Raptors wanted young players as part of that. I
Mhm.
mean, they wanted Quickly and Barrett. I don't think OKC's ever making that deal, but I also don't think that they had the pieces that could have realistically enticed Toronto more than Quickly and Barrett because of what they were looking for. So when I look at that, it's like
Injury-wise,
who
but injury-wise too, like,
well,
that's
yeah,
the guy
injury
you
wise.
wanna count on too? I mean, I are we sure that he's going to be healthy enough for this run? Yeah, when he's healthy, it's awesome, but I don't
Yeah, healthy he would have been perfect, but it's just he's I mean,
just don't trust it. I mean,
he
he
played
hasn't.
50 games last year. He played 50 games this year.
Yeah,
He played 67 the year before. Year before that, 48. Year before that, 43.
and there's also, like, the history with OG and Oklahoma City that says, like, you should not trade for this guy because he would not have re-signed
Right,
in
right,
this
right.
city. Like, it was just not going to happen, and so there I could list 100 reasons why OG Anunoby was not the guy for OKC.
And that's why I just can't get too upset about the deadline. Also, because of the rumors that are out there about the certain offers that they did make. I don't know if you saw that one on Twitter the other day. And I don't know how much to believe this guy. He's a draft guy. I think his name's like Brian J NBA or something like that.
Okay.
But he he's
Well,
I usually like respect his draft opinions enough
okay.
where I thought it was strange for him to just say this, but he said that he had heard that OKC offered Lou Dort and 3 firsts for Larry Markkinen. Again, no idea if that is true. But
It's not I can tell you that's not true.
really,
Yeah, I can tell you that that's not true.
but what if it was, Andrew?
It's not true. It's just not true.
It might be.
You can just, I mean, the thing about Twitter is like you can just say whatever you want.
Yeah, but I don't.
I know you because you have a conscience.
I don't know if it's a conscience. It's just like, I don't know. I
Dustin
mean,
Johnson threw out Julius Randle for OKC. Just like I could not we could do 45 minutes on why they would never ever do it. There's just no way.
so that's
I
a
don't
guy.
me, but like there just ain't no way. Just ain't no
That's
way.
a guy where, sometimes when we talk about adding another guy, I think
Mhm.
we get too hung up on the idea of like, oh, I'm so worried about taking touches from J Dub and Chet. Sometimes I feel like we get a little too hung up on that. It's like, let's just get a good player. Okay. The exception to that for me is Julius Randle, because Julius Randle is absolutely the type of guy who would take significant touches from J Dub
Oh, so
and
many.
and like and wouldn't like see this is why I kind of liked Markkinen like back when we were talking about him,
Yeah.
because even though he is like a great player, all-star level player for his group, like in terms of guys who are scoring 20 points a game, he had the lowest usage as it is. So he's a guy who I think could like be accentuated in a slightly smaller role.
Mhm.
Whereas Julius Randle, I think to get the most out of him, like you do kind of have to just like let him cook, and he does cook.
Yeah. Lowry's an off-ball player. Like a majority of his stuff is
Right.
off-ball. And so like
Yeah.
you could now he's not going to be an all-star again if he comes to Oklahoma City and is
Right.
like
Right.
for
Right.
the long term. And so like it's a that's partly why he wants to stay in Utah because it is financially extremely beneficial for him to be built around rather than made like the fourth or fifth cog in a team,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And so like
But yeah, Julius, I couldn't imagine
there's
Julius Randle.
just no way. Like I there's just no way. It's just not gonna happen. Um okay, so what are some names then? Like where like when you're talking, like what is like the type of name that will like get you excited?
Well, okay, one other thing. Two other things, Andrew.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, one other thing I saw a lot, which I partly agree with, but it's this idea that like, okay, you and some others, probably me, after they lose, we say, "Hey, they got great experience. They
Mhm.
probably learned a lot in
Mhm.
these playoffs." And I think a lot of the response to that was honestly, what did they learn that they didn't know at the trade deadline? You've seen that a lot. Like honestly, what did they learn at the trade deadline? I mean, we were talking earlier in the season like, man, I think it's really going to be tough for Giddy in the playoffs. Like once they get later in the playoffs against a good team, I think it's going to be tough. Like that's
Mhm.
something we were talking about, months ago.
Yeah, that there would be series that he couldn't play in. Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked
or
about
we were talking about, oh man, they really could use another big or just a little bit more size, maybe someone who could rebound. Like, yes, we were talking all about that months ago. I do
Mhm.
think though there are things that we weren't talking about at the deadline that we are now talking about a little bit more. And one of those is the idea of having a another scorer slash playmaker.
Yeah.
And we talked about it last week, like a guy like that off of the bench. No
Mhm.
one was talking about targeting a guy like that at the trade deadline. But then you see them in the playoffs, and it's like, man, they could just really use a little bit more juice. Like the guys that they have out on the perimeter just aren't aggressive enough in terms of like attacking closeouts.
Role
Um,
players.
yeah, yeah, like their role players just don't have enough offensive juice in the way we kind of need it in certain lineups, especially when Shea is off the court. Um, and so, and then the other thing is that no one was really talking about shooting at the trade deadline because they were had the highest 3-point percentage in the league.
Mhm.
And but then I watched that playoffs and it's like, man, I would really like a high volume shooter even more than I thought I wanted it in the past. Like one of the things I came away from that playoffs was like they just so many of the role players are. It's not just that they're low volume 3-point shooters because that's going to kind of be inevitable with role players. Like they're not going to take a ton of threes necessarily unless you
Mhm.
have someone like a Sam Hauser or whatever, or even Isaiah Joe. But it's that they're taking these sort of threes that low volume 3-point shooters take. Like they're only catch and shoot. Like I would love to have someone who's taking more like someone someone else on the team who take pull up threes. I
Sure.
think that would really help stretch a defense in a way that their current catch and shoot guys just aren't doing. Even
Mm,
though, as a whole, this team is a very good 3-point shooting team.
mhm,
So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up.
mhm,
That I do think there are things that we are talking about now that we weren't talking about as much at the deadline. So I do think they did learn some things.
mhm.
Okay, in terms of guys,
You got some
so
guys.
I don't know if I have some guys. I I want to talk about some names that have been out there and some of the reasons why I like them versus why I don't like them. So we'll
Mhm.
start with Denny Avdia. Okay,
Yeah.
Wiz plays for the Wiz. 23 years old.
Mhm.
Had his breakout season with one of the worst teams in the league.
I was gonna say he broke out, and, this is it's. And I'm not saying like Denny's not good. I would not. I'm not saying that. And I actually like Denny,
You
but
think it
like,
might be inflated?
yeah, I do.
Yeah. So, I mean, the nice things about Denny is he's big. He's bigger than you think. Like I think, could play the four a lot more easily than J Dub.
Six
Like
nine,
just
210. Yeah,
yeah, like he's a big dude,
yeah.
and he's a good rebounder. I would say underrated rebounder. Post All Star break, he was around 9 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
Now a lot of that was his minutes increase. He was only playing like 28 minutes per game pre All Star break for whatever reason on the Wiz.
Yeah.
But you look at his like total rebound percentage; it's like 22%, which
Yeah.
is better than Josh Giddey, for example.
Mhm.
And Josh is a really good rebounder.
Mhm.
He definitely has like passing chops, playmaking chops. His shooting has theoretically finally come around. I think he shot like 38%,
Yeah.
and he's
Low
a good
volume.
defender. Low volume. We're going to get to that. And he's a good defender.
Mhm.
I think he absolutely could work in OKC. However, I don't know that he necessarily solves any of the issues that I was just talking about, because I don't think anyone is still guarding Denny Avdia in the playoffs. I think they're going to guard him the same way they guarded Dort this playoffs. Like, yeah, if
Oh,
he wants to take 10 threes per game, sure, go for it,
that's
but no
in
one
fact,
cares.
that's what we want him to do.
Yeah, like I think you still get into that same issue.
Mhm.
And so I like him, but when I think about the Wizards, it's like you have this 23-year-old, you're a super young team. He just had his breakout season. He's on an amazing contract. Like, why would you trade him? And if you are going to trade him, why would you accept anything less than like the Aaron Gordon trade package, which was at that time a young player, Gary Harris, not like a, superstar young player, just like a young player and 2 nice first round picks. Like, if I'm the Wizards, like that's the minimum I'd be willing to accept for Denny.
Would you swap him for Giddy straight up?
Uh yeah.
Because that's where that is like that to me is the conversation. If you're talking about adding Denny Avdia,
Yeah. I think he brings enough. Well, first of all, he's going to play more than 12 minutes in a series against Dallas.
uh,
I I
guaranteed.
feel very confident about that, and a lot of that comes down to his defensive versatility.
Yeah.
Comparing him to Giddy, like swapping him out. So yeah, I would absolutely do something like that. I would be happy to do Giddy and a pick. I don't know what.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Listen,
I mean,
that
Andrew, they have 17 picks. I don't care about them. They can do. They could throw 3 away, and it wouldn't matter.
stop.
It's true.
I don't. I think Giddy for Avdia makes sense. I would not Giddy in a pick is like now we've overinflated what we think Denny Avdia is.
But it's not about that. It's about trying to get some of these deals done, because we know they tried to go after guys at the trade deadline, and
I mean,
eventually you're
making
going to have
calls is like not necessarily going after guys. I mean, everybody makes calls.
right. But clearly, if they were willing to offer enough, they probably could have gotten a deal done. And I
Oh, of
just think
course.
you can't be like too precious with these picks going forward. I mean, how about this? You don't want to give up first? How about Giddy and 3 seconds, Andrew?
Sure.
Okay, there.
Don't care
Yeah,
about
so I would be totally willing to do a deal like that. I like Denny, but I still just want to caution that, like, I don't think he solved some of the issues that we were that we saw in the playoffs.
He doesn't, but I think I actually don't agree with that. I think that he actually does because he gives you this kind of player, and it's not that like Denny Avdia is going to solve everything, but I also think like one of the things that they were missing was like a big forward that can play with these guys and slide everybody into their correct defensive positions. Because
yeah, defensively, I totally get it. I don't think like the change offensively is going to be like earth changing, world changing.
It's not, but they'll guard him. They'll think of him differently than they think of Josh Giddey on the perimeter.
Sure, but will they think of him differently than Lou Dort?
No, and
So you're still going to
that's
have
why he's not the perfect guy. You
right.
know, that's why like and also if he was the perfect guy, they're like Markkanen, the Wizards wouldn't trade him, and so like I don't think that they'll trade him anyways. Like you laid that out pretty well, but also I think like the reason why they would consider it is one, I think Josh Giddey has a higher ceiling than Denny does, and like it would make some sense for them to want a player like that. They don't have a point guard currently on their team, and
Yeah.
so I think and also like Will Dawkins has a history with Josh. Like he knows him and knows that he could be a building block for them. Whereas like Denny's like a cog in the system. Like he's not the system,
Yeah.
And Josh is 21 years old. He's 2 years younger than Denny, and like there's a lot more runway for him that exists, which is like all reasons why if you're the Thunder, like you may just want to keep Josh. But and like by the way, like my feeling on the situation with Josh is like that he's going to be back. That's my feeling on the situation. But if you're thinking about trading him, I think trading for a 6'9" forward that gives you size, that gives you rebounding, that gives you shooting, that gives you passing, like that's the ideal player. And like you can see Denny, operating within the Thunder offense very well. And so like yes, he's a player that makes sense. For OKC and a guy that's on a ridiculous contract moving forward, considering, where the salary cap is. I mean, it's a descending contract that next year is at 15, 14, 13, and 11 and 27, 28. Like that is like reason enough for the Wizards not to trade him. Just to have a good player on a contract like that is crazy. Because I guarantee you Josh is going to make a lot more than 11 million in 27, 28. Like I can promise you that. And so like that to me is like reason enough for them to not do the deal at all for the Wizards. And also a great reason for the Thunder to try to make a deal like that because you're going to be expensive in 27, 28. And if you can have Denny on your team at that number, I mean, that is going to be a high value contract at the time. Also, his nickname is Turbo. So,
you think that's after the movie?
you think he looks like Turbo the snail?
Who made Turbo? Was that a DreamWorks?
Have you seen Turbo the movie?
No, I haven't seen it. I just know it in my head. I know what the poster looks like.
I know what it is, but I've never seen it either.
It is DreamWorks. Wow. Snoop Dogg was in it. Ryan Reynolds, Paul Giamatti was in Turbo.
Wow.
Maya Rudolph, Samuel L. Jackson.
Wow.
Maybe we got to go check it out.
They lost a ton of money on Turbo. I don't even.
No, they didn't, Andrew. Their budget was 135 million. They made 282 million.
They only paid 135 million for Turbo?
Yeah.
Well, congrats to them.
Voice cast. Ryan Reynolds is Theo Turbo, the titular protagonist, a garden snail who dreams of becoming a racer and the next Indianapolis 500 champion. Anyway. Oh, Paul Giamatti as Chet.
Oh, wow.
Turbo's overprotective older brother and Burns' boyfriend.
Boyfriend. Wow. Shouts to Denny, a.k.a. Turbo, which I just can't imagine that anybody actually calls him that.
Yeah. So he would be cheaper than Denny. He's also not as good. Is Isaiah Stewart.
Oh, get out of my face with beef stew, man. Get the beef stew. Send it back to the kitchen. Send the beef stew back to the kitchen.
Now, what do you not like? What because let me first make the pitch for beef stew. Um,
Okay.
he is young. Andrew, you would agree with that? Can we start there?
He does have an attractive age.
In fact, it's his birthday today.
Oh,
He's
shout out to
23
Beef
years old.
Stew. Wow. He's how old?
Um,
22?
23.
23. Oh, he's the same age as Denny. He's only like 100 days younger.
He's younger. The other thing is, if you're looking for a 4 with size, I don't think you're going to be able to find a bigger 4. He is 6'8", 200 and is this correct? 250 pounds.
That's probably true.
You're not finding a bigger 4 on the market than Beef Stew. His name is Beef Stew for a reason.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for size, okay, that's something. Now, the problem with Beef Stew.
We got there quick.
Okay, well, maybe I should emphasize the positive a little bit more. Great size for a 4. You know,
I already said it.
okay. Playing next to Chet, could probably handle some of those bigger. Like it would be closer to the double big lineup that we saw Jay Will and Chet than like Denny and Chet. Denny's not going to suddenly be guarding Jokic, and not that Beef Stew is either, but like 250 pounds is legit. That is a big man. Okay.
Yeah. God,
Okay.
I just could not hate that starting lineup more. Could not hate it more.
It's too closer to the it's too close to the Pistons. Does it
Yeah, I
remind you
mean,
too much
like,
of
give me a
the
break. I mean, like, the Pistons were in. It was just like, what? Like, they have to stop starting this guy. It was like the framing of Beef Stew this season. I was like, I cannot believe we're starting this guy.
I misspoke earlier when I said total rebound percentage for Denny. I was talking about defensive rebound percentage, that he's at 22%. I bring that up because Isaiah Stewart had a down rebounding year this year, but the last 2 years was at 23% and 24.5% defensive rebounding. So he is a good rebounder. He's a better rebounder than Denny.
Well, Beef Stew is getting you excited, by the way.
I'm just listen. You're the one that wants a big 4. I'm out here trying to give you the biggest 4 I can find, and you're immediately poo-pooing it. All right.
I want more of a 3-4, not a 4-5. 4-5 is like it's the worst kind of tweener.
But maybe that's okay. That might be true in general, but maybe that's exactly what you would want next to Chet. A unicorn. It could be a 4-5 instead of a 3-4.
He makes more money than Denny.
Yeah, but it's negligible. It's negligible. Who cares?
I'm not negliging anything about this. I think
he also has a team option in the final year.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're gonna get excited about Denny shooting, Beef Stew did the exact same thing this year. He shot 38% on 3.8 attempts. So
I just believe it so much less.
Why? Why would you believe it any less?
I just do. He's just not as skilled of a player. Like, just not. Like, not even close.
I mean, I'm looking back at. I mean, Denny's been terrible before this season. He shot 31%, 32%, 29% before he suddenly shot 37%.
Yeah, neither of these guys are making a difference from 3, like, for this team.
Okay, fine. That's good enough for me. If we're going to be arguing about them.
I just the thing about Denny that I like over Beef Stew is the passing. But like, I think that we can both like say that like Giddey for Denny Avdia makes some sense. Giddey for Beef Stew would be insanity.
I'm just not as high on Giddey as you are. So I mean, I wouldn't want to do that deal, but I'm not as high on Giddey as you are.
I mean that's not a shocking statement at all.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Beef Stew.
I could not be more out. I'm sorry. And maybe they trade.
He's also a good offensive rebounder. Which, if that is what you care about, if you care about bounds, I think Beef Stew.
Yeah, I mean the thing about him that you would like is just like he just provides a lot of toughness. Like that's the thing. Like that
arguably too much often.
Sometimes it's way too much. But like that would be the thing that I like about him most is like and he's a bench player. Like he's not a starter. So if you brought him into this team, he would not start. He would be an off the bench big, and he would likely be a center for this team. And like that's what everybody was saying all year about him is like he is not a starting four, he is a backup center. And so he may be an upgrade over Jay Will in some ways. Sure. You could talk me into that. And you could talk me into like just adding a third big, that can theoretically play multiple positions. Like, yeah, if they were to accept like, I mean, I would not trade a first for him. I'll say that. But if you traded a few seconds for him, sure, whatever. But then it's like, then why are the Pistons doing it? Like, I don't know.
That they could get even more space. They could get up to $75 million in cap space.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that's I mean, what could they do with that?
I mean, just think of the possibilities. They could they could sign Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon again,
Man, I'd love to see those guys back. Okay, fine. Let's see. I mean, Grant Williams
Dude,
is just like a cheap. Like, I don't think
just
it would cost that much
to annoy everybody and for everybody. Like,
yeah, that part of it does bother me.
You thought we had good vibes. Let's see if the Thunder can withstand the.
It would be a good test.
The wake of Grant Williams coming in here.
I'm looking at other. Who sent me this? Somebody sent me. Ankit Pancakes sent me. It was just a list of guys. Let me see what they have in common. Under 28, usage under 24, assist percentage over 10.3, turnover percentage. So basically, good passers, low turnovers, bigs / forwards, younger, don't take up a lot of possessions. Okay, so this is the list I'm going from, and Denny is on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like Mikal Bridges, we could talk about Mikal Bridges. I just still don't think that if you're the Nets, you're dealing him for anything other than a Houston Rockets based package.
Yeah, the Thunder aren't going to get in on Mikal. I don't.
And by the way, the idea of, I saw somebody tweeted this on Twitter, a 3-team deal, Mitchell to Houston, Bridges and stuff to Cleveland, and those picks to the Nets. There's a version of that trade that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but the word out of Brooklyn is that they want to add players too.
Oh, I know that's what they want to do. I know.
Yeah, and so you just why would they do that now? I guess is the question.
Because they're further away than they think.
Well,
if they got a like quote unquote star, they're still not going to be anywhere close to contention.
I agree, but like there are delusional teams, and they are.
No, I know. Other names on this list: Cam Johnson, who've talked about before.
We're like going back to the trade deadline.
I know.
A lot of these guys. Yeah, I like Cam. He makes quite a bit more money than the guys we've been talking about, but you add Cam Johnson to this group, there's a lot to like. He is a volume shooter. He is a guy that can. He's a little bit more than just a catch and shoot guy too. Like he can create a little bit, and given the freedom in this offense, like yeah, it would fit very well, and he would be great. And he's on the record saying that he really likes what's being built here, and he would like to be a part of it too. And so
on the record,
yeah, said it. Well, maybe that was, I can't remember. Somebody was on. Whoops. Never mind. He said it. All right.
He said it.
That's all I got to say. He said it. He has said it, and I can't remember if it was on or off the record, but he's said it before. Yeah, Cam. I mean, he would be really fun, and you could obviously see him sliding into that starting lineup. He provides a little bit of size. He's not a good rebounder though, and some of that is like the position. He's a perimeter-oriented player. So it would put a lot of pressure. Adding him to the starting lineup would put a lot of pressure on Chet and J-Dub to like be better rebounders, themselves. And so,
what do you think about? Because most of our time has been spent on looking at 3-4s, 4-5s.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any guards that you could see wanting to add to this team? Because we've talked about how coming out of that playoffs, man, it would really be nice to have like more of a traditional sixth man scorer type who can come in, stretch the defense with their shooting, attack closeouts, or just play make on their own. Is there anyone who would fit that for you that would excite you enough?
Mm-mm. I don't know. I mean,
Like Malik Monk, who is I'm just they're not going to sign Malik Monk because there's
he's
so many teams that are going to give him a
I
lot
was
of
going to
money.
say he's going to make a lot of money this summer, and I just don't
But
think.
but a player like that coming off of their bench.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you get Malik Monk to come off the bench, like, yeah, that would be phenomenal. But I don't think you're getting him. Colin Sexton's a name, Yamology in the chat. Yeah, Colin would be great, but like, I don't think he's getting traded. And you have to give up something significant to get him because he had a really nice year. I mean, it's under the radar, but he had a really nice year. That's where I wonder if you draft Jared McCain, from Duke.
Yeah.
If you just draft him 12th, he's 6'3" guard that can play 1 and 2 and can score a little bit and shoot it. So I wonder about if you just draft a player like that. I know that some people are like, man, I can't believe that they're going to draft another guy.
But does he have like the offensive juice?
I mean, it's a risk. I mean, I don't know if he can do it in the NBA. I don't know. I mean, and also there's the opportunity. And Lucas Paulette in the chat says, Kaysen is a 6-man. He's got a lot. He's got to develop quite a bit to become.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like offensively. It would be great if Kaysen developed into that. I haven't seen that from him yet. Maybe
Yeah.
we will in summer league when he's allowed to do a bit more.
Yeah.
But in terms of a guy who can come off and consistently give you like 15 a night off the bench.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
just go get Dennis Schroeder and bring Schroeder back.
Okay.
Asomba Reggio gives us a super chat. He says, to be honest, I would be happy with low-key moves, and that's most likely to happen. Moving on from Giddey or Wiggs to promote Jang. It's now or never time to try him. Bring in Buddy Hield on a 2+1 and draft a big. I mean,
Andrew, I have to go.
Okay. Bye, Alex.
Bye.
Yeah, I think El Samba Reggio is on the right track. I don't necessarily think they're going to move on from anybody to promote Jang. I think Jang is going to have to seize a role on this team. Is I think the way that's going to have to go. So, I don't think they'll be moving on from Aaron Wiggins to do that. He's going to have to actually earn the spot. And honestly, you want him to, because if you just move on from a guy like Wiggins to promote Jang, you wind up in a situation similar to Denver, where it's guys that have not earned it are having to take these minutes because we have given ourselves no other option. And I don't think you want to put yourself in that position, as of today. So, all right, we will have more. We'll have our Friday show will be tomorrow. So Thursday morning. So prepare for that. And then we won't have another show till Monday. So hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. And we will talk to you guys again tomorrow.